lot of these folks were the ones that fuel the growth of the company. So speaking with my advisory team, and of course it's my opinion as well, that we will go public when we hit $75 million to $100 million in annual recurring revenue. And companies in the fintech and artificial intelligence space with $100 million in annual recurring revenue are valued between $15 to $25 billion. Currently, we're valued at $680 million, which makes it seem like a baby valuation, but truly is a big thing as well, especially starting from a $28 million valuation.
How much debt do y'all have currently?
So we're debt-free, thankfully. And of course, that has to do with our product buy alerts that generates revenue for the company, but also it has to do with the position we're in, where a lot of our investors are betting on us to deliver on artificial intelligence. And we continue to bring investors all the time. Now, what's happening right now is that we're bringing investors who are helping us to accelerate the launch of the institutional side of the platform. So Pilot AI, it's not going to be necessarily for the retail investor. We will take care of retail investors who want to use it. And of course, that's the core of the business. We will care for the people who need an edge. But I have thousands of shareholders at this point who want an IPO. And the way you get to an IPO and the way I can accelerate revenue to $75 to $100 million is going to be by going institutional. So Pilot AI is truly developed more for hedge funds, pension funds, RIAs who need this type of technology. Retirement accounts with the use of artificial intelligence is going to bring an incredible boost to that. Hedge funds, there's 33,000 hedge funds in this world, and many of them are struggling because they don't have access to technology. And then, of course, you also have, the RIAs who have incredible technology to be able to execute trades, but they don't have the artificial intelligence to be able to do it at that speed. So that's where Pilot AI takes on a huge opportunity in how we're going to accelerate the growth of the company. So right now, what I'm planning on doing is closing the round. I'm going to be closing it very soon, probably by the end of the month, and get ready to launch Pilot AI. So we won't take any more investments and launch Pilot AI. And of course, we want to start growing that revenue with Pilot AI. And then later through the year, I'm going to get a new valuation. That valuation will be probably between $1.1 to $1.7 billion. So that's going to be a huge thing. Now, again, that's just the beginning of our journey to get to an IPO. But getting to that unicorn category is going to be a huge thing for us, right? Now, as an institutional platform that targets IRAs, hedge funds, pension funds, it'll get us to $100 million in annual revenue. And, being that I put a lot of my resources into this company, including money, to build it, I'm going to do everything in my power to get us to that IPO. So what we're doing right now is we're giving people an opportunity to invest. And even though right now we are at a $680 million valuation, we can get our investors to the previous round or the round before that by way of bonus shares. The previous valuation we had before the $680 million valuation was $590 million. And then before that, we had a valuation of $350 million. So depending on the investment size, we give bonus shares, which brings the share cost below what it currently is, which is $1.20. It's very accessible, so you get an incredible number of shares. If we bring you back retroactively to a previous round or the round even before, then now you're getting even more shares, and it puts you in an incredible position. And of course, this is before we even go to the $1.1 to $1.7 billion valuation after we launch Pilot AI. And then, of course, the goal is now at that point to get to the $75 million. I think we can take this thing public, but between $75 to $100 million, we can take this public. And when people invest right now, it's like you invested in Uber. When you invest in Uber, the company wasn't profitable. Their first valuation was $5.4 million, so it was a very small valuation. In fact, 5 times smaller than ours. And what people did is they invested because they believed in the idea. At this point, the idea is already built, but what we need to build a B2B team, and that's what our investors are helping us accelerate. And we need to also, of course, accelerate the launch of the institutional side of Pilot AI, which is going to be a big deal. Our team so far has dealt with consumers, right? It's a business-to-consumer dynamic with BioAlerts. And now we need to build a business-to-business team that's going to be reaching out to hedge funds and to all these different types of institutional platforms that I think are going to benefit tremendously from Pilot AI. So that's the goal. The goal is an IPO. It's an IPO sooner than later. I don't have the year, but I do have the revenue that I need to be able to take it public. And that's where the home runs lie. We get to $75 to $100 million in revenue. We're going to get a valuation of, $15 to $25 billion. The share price, of course, goes up. It will go up even when we go to the next valuation, which will be as a unicorn above $1 billion. That means that the $1.20 share price right now could go up 3-4 times. You invest, $500,000, we go 2 times, you're now at $1.5 million. But when it really skyrockets is going to be when you go public, right? An IPO and a valuation as strong as $15 to $25 billion can take the share price to $30, $60, $80 price per share. So that's where the home runs are, and that's why people are investing at this stage. And historically, that's where people like to invest on the seed rounds. If you start investing on the secondary rounds, and once you get to the later rounds, the returns are not going to be as huge as it is when you actually get on the seed rounds of a company.
Yep. Yeah. Do you even need investors anymore, or are you just bringing them on just so you can?
No, absolutely. The investors are the ones that help us to be able to fuel the growth, right? For us to build a B2B team, that requires funds. And for the company to continue to have a positive runway, then that's what investments do, and that's why you're in this position, right? Investments are important either way when you're on a journey to an IPO, because it's a win-win transaction. If the investor believes in what the company is doing, well, they're buying shares of that company and betting that company is going to go public, and then you're going to be able to have an incredible position.
Yeah, oh yeah,
but at
absolutely.
the same time, the investor is helping the company to be able to deliver on all the projects and all the products that it's building, or that it's launching, or it's streamlining, whatever the case may be. And of course, on the side of artificial intelligence, it's a lot of work, and it takes a village.
It might be fun if you come up with a new name for AI, because artificial is such a horrible name for AI, isn't it?
Well, it is truly what it is. It's generative AI.
Yeah.
And
so maybe you could just delete the word AI and go, no, we now use GI or something like that, and say people say, well, what's GI?
What they call it is AGI, Advanced General Intelligence.
You see, that's a better name. I mean, just using the word artificial, I get it, but it doesn't fit.
You know why you use it? It's the generic way for everyone to be on the same page, right? But you can get very deep into some of the things that are happening right now with AGI,
right.
and what we use is called, the core of it is called machine learning, right? That's what artificial intelligence really is. It's machine learning that processes millions upon millions of data points, gigabytes of data, and then based on the task and the rules that you give that data, it's going to perform. So in this case, with the market, what it does, it's looking at models that have 50 million data points per model, analyzes the data, looks at past data points, at current market data, old market data, looking back decades. It looks at sentiment. It looks at many other things. And based on all of that data, it creates what's called probability models. And then your machine, because it gets smarter the more it learns, uses those probability models to make decisions. In this case, it makes decisions on where to trade, or when to buy and when to sell, when to recalibrate, and all of those different aspects. So it's a very complex thing. It's a beautiful thing, really. And you're right. It's artificial intelligence in that it's a machine that's processing the data and learning from the data. But machine learning is really what the core of the whole thing is.
The machine is just learning based upon human input.
That's correct.
And then
it just has the ability to go through so many more data points, right?
Right, exactly. So what would your new name be for it? AGI?
AGI is just the general word, right? It's the general phrase or the general. So AGI is artificial general intelligence, right? So it still has the AI in it, but the reason why it's artificial general intelligence is because it's even more sophisticated. It's smarter. It has the ability.
I think it'd be really cool if you rename the company Pilot AGI, and then people are like going, "What's the G mean?" And then you can say, "Artificial, our advanced general intelligence," or something like that. And then people might say, then people might say, "Oh," and you could even boast and say, "It's because we are way beyond AI."
and truly we are. What we're doing is something that doesn't exist in the market, and there's a lot of fintech companies. This year alone, there's been, I think it's about $28 billion that have been put into fintech alone, where people have invested. It's somewhere around there. I just read that recently, actually. But what we're doing is something for a specific niche where there's a lot of need for help. And I just actually had a conversation with a gentleman today, and it's an investor in New York, and we just opened an office in Soho. And the gentleman actually does insurance, and he's done incredibly well with insurance and life policies and whatnot. And he was telling me how there's an angle even there where AI could help, and our product can help because they could add it into the package of being able to have Pilot AI as part of that. So I'm exploring a lot of different situations, but I know that my core right now is hedge funds, it's pension funds, it's going to be RIAs, and all of these have very deep pockets as well to be able to boost the revenue of this company. And we won't stop until we get there. It's been an incredible journey. And very quickly, we've been able to get a team of developers, of engineers, and incredible talent from MIT, Stanford, and you name it.
Yeah.
To build a product that can do incredible things at a time where the market, I mean, you just saw what just happened last week, right? And then this week. And how do you time that, right? How do you time that if you can't be glued to your screen 100%? And even a lot of people who are glued to their screens, checking out what the sentiment was to be able to, buy the dip or whatever the case, they didn't time it. They lost a lot of money. We have heard about a lot of people that lost a ton of money.
And then you have to somehow be tied to, news. And how do you all tie yourselves to news?
Yeah, we do. So AI model training and data set is public data. So it's going to look at, of course, the news, by that the articles on Bloomberg, Yahoo Finance, and the rest of the internet, historical market data, macroeconomic information, so that'll be anything that is proprietary to us and also that's generally accessible on the internet. We have proprietary data that's unique to our own strategies. That's our secret sauce, and it's very important. And we use pre-trained models as well. So what a pre-trained model does is that it gives you speed and efficiency in being able to reinforce the learning and the back testing. So yeah, we're looking at anything and everything that makes the market tick. And more importantly, we use no direct human trader inputs. Everything is automated. Essentially, this automates learning for market conditions without manual intervention. And that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to be something that is plug and play and that we don't rely on a person to have to make any decisions, because as people, we are very emotional in the market, and people revenge trade when they're losing sometimes, right? And then we have very limited bandwidth as well. We don't have the ability to look at everything that you should be looking at to make decisions in the market.
Yeah, human decisions can actually topple AGI.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there is what's called TFT technology, which is something that we use, and there's a lot of data that is going to AI or machine learning is going to look at, right? And as it's looking at all of this data, what tends to occur is it might look at a data point and say, okay, I see this data point, and then there's this other data point, and I see a congruence here. There's some similarity, and I think that this is something. So I'm going to push this as a probability model. And it turns out that that has nothing to do with each other, and it just gave you a false signal, right? So what TFT technology does is it allows AI to be able to look at data points and discard data points that might have similarities for whatever reason, because there's going to be what would be called in our day-to-day life coincidences, right? You say you say hello, and then on the TV you're watching a show, and someone said hello at the same time, right? And you're like, wow, that's crazy. Well, AI, if it was looking at that, it would say like, oh, that said hello, this said hello, these data points are similar. There must be something there, and there wasn't. It was just a coincidence, right?
Right.
So TFT eliminates those, and that's why you have a higher probability of profit when you're using TFT technology. And there's many other types of technologies that we use.
Who developed
to make
TFT?
Sure that, so TFT is a technology that has been developed for a while. Remember, artificial intelligence is not new. It has been around since.
Oh yeah. It's just great. You're right, because I mean, like even spell check on your phones, that was AI.
Yeah. And even before that, I mean, we're talking about the 80s. AI has been around since 80s, 70s. The internet has been around since the 50s, 40s. All of this has been around. It's just that we're seeing an explosion of technology right now because of the internet. See, machine learning, AGI, artificial intelligence, is a byproduct of the internet. The internet helped us to get more inexpensive computing power, which was the biggest challenge in the previous decades, especially in the 50s, 60s, 70s. You know, to get a computer, you had to have rooms, right? That was your computer. It was a room. So computing power is more compact, and it's more accessible price-wise. And then data, it's more readily available and easier for machine learning to sift through, because we have an incredible and infinite database in the internet. Without the internet, it's impossible to be able to have all the data at your disposal. And that's really what brought about this explosion in artificial intelligence. I mean, it's going to be a $32 trillion industry by 2030.
And
it really will redefine things.
Yeah, I watched things grow along. And what year were you born?
I was born in 1979.
79. Okay. Yeah, you sound much younger than that.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm 45. I'm going to be 46 this year.
Okay, yeah. So my first computer was a DOS 1.0. One of the very few computers that people actually had was an IBM, PC. The total memory was 64K, And then
I'm a bit of a nerd, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. They actually said, John, you should loan this to the American Museum up on Smithsonian and let them have it. I went up there and they actually did have some really early.
Oh, machines. They did?
Yeah, and I was part of a group in college, because I was born in 63, and then in 1980s, I was part of a group that started at University of Wichita and then expanded to Kansas, where I was attending, and then expanded all over to MIT and to all the major universities, Stanford, and all around America. And that group, was called Association of Collegiate Entrepreneurs. And then from that group, all the friends would network. And the friends that networked included, Bill Gates, Stephen Jobs, Michael Dell, in the technology sector, but there was also a lot of entrepreneurs in other sectors like Debbie Fields, Debbie Fields Cookies, things like that. And so it was a fun group to be a part of. And then I was actually on the leading edge of the internet, working with Netscape. And, Netscape was the first browser.
Yep. That's right.
Which evaporated for some reason, I guess because, Explorer came out and Netscape didn't know how to compete with Explorer.
Yeah, and then you had Explorer, and Explorer also sort of evaporated as well, right? It's crazy how these things tend to happen.
You got Bing. And I was one of the ones who helped Google. Google was just getting off the ground, and I called them up one day and I said, would you like, us to provide your internet bandwidth at 50 cents on the dollar for what you're paying right now? And they said, how in the world are you going to do that? And I said, we can do it. And then we met the next day, and then we became their internet service provider. And, based upon a Colorado billionaire in the oil industry, and he purchased all of the railroads, from basically, Colorado westward. And then the telecommunications companies asked him if he would, allow them to put fiber optic cables down. And then, they said yes. And he asked if he could lay a cable alongside them. And then he went from nothing, and in less than 1 year, to the fourth largest telco in America.
It's incredible. And just like that, also there's other stories. There's this guy, James Altucher, and he was this venture capitalist billionaire. And he passed on funding Google, actually. And he shares that it was the worst venture capital decision in history.
I have to admit that one of the worst decisions I ever made was not getting involved with Oracle, which I was invited to be involved.
Oh, that's huge! Wow, that's huge.
When they were an actual startup.
Google was giving this guy 20% of the company for $1 million, and he replied to his junior partner, search engines. and at that time it was Excite, remember? So he's like, what is the price of Excite, of the stock price of Excite? And he says, 0, not interested. They're too small for us. And yeah, well, now we know what Google ended up being, right? It's the search engine. So yeah, it's all about perspective, and there's so many of those.
Yeah, and I am thankful sometimes, because I say, well, the devil could have led me to be a billionaire to take me away from God. And because, I've stayed very involved with God. Are you a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew?
No, I'm a born again Christian, and I agree with you. I've always thought that you don't get a blessing if it's going to be a curse. So what you're saying is exactly of the train of thought that I've always been. You sometimes ask for things, but if they came to you at the wrong time, it would have been a curse rather than.
I like your outlook on life. So yeah, I'm a born again Christian as well. And I was not when I was working in technology. Yeah. When I was working in technology, in California, I was a Christian. I just wasn't a born again Christian at that time. So
congrats. Well, I'm from California originally.
Yeah, I lived in the Bay Area from 95 to 2000.
Oh, nice. So I used to work in Silicon Valley a lot before I started the business. I kind of had retired a little bit, and I was doing more of a consultant type of role. And I worked there a lot, but I lived in Southern California, in Orange County, in Laguna Beach, small town.
Oh, yeah. I used to... there was a sailboat in Dana Point. Wasn't far from Laguna, was it?
Oh my gosh, yeah. The harbor is so beautiful there.
Did you ever see that massive sailboat there?
Yes, of course.
It's called Sail Pilgrim. Yeah,
that's right.
I used to sail that in California.
No way.
I did. It sunk now.
No way.
One day during the COVID, it got a leak and it sank to the bottom of the marina, which was it just sank right below its deck. And, all the masts were still above ground, but when they tried to raise it up, they just couldn't. And so they had to destroy it.
What a bummer.
Yeah.
What a bummer. No, yeah, I love Dana Point. Dana Point is, the harbor specifically is so beautiful to just go and walk there, and very peaceful.
Yeah, it really is.
And I lived just up that past Laguna Niguel, and then you have Laguna Beach. So yeah, with a family, we would drive to Dana Point and go walk and go and boating and whatnot.
I had a company back then called Navis Center, which was designed to be a central for web-based software, so that you could access any software you wanted. You didn't have to download anything, and we were getting it off the ground with the venture capitalists in the Bay Area, and then the economy was starting to teeter a little bit. About 1999. And I went to a meeting at Stanford with all the tech execs, and I raised my hand. They were all, very focused on their companies. And I raised my hand and I just said, how are you all going to ever make money with any of these companies? Because every bit of their money came from investment dollars, because every single internet company was offering free services. And not one of them could respond. And then I just said, it's time for me to get out of here. So I packed my bags and took off for Southern California for 3 months, and then went to Colorado.
Is that where you live now?
Well, part-time, yeah. Back and forth between there and South Carolina, along the coast of South Carolina.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, it's called Pauly's.
I want to get...
What's that?
That area is beautiful. Beautiful area.
Well, everywhere in America and everywhere in the world is beautiful.
Well, you know what? Yeah, you're right. It has the world has its beautiful thing. I mean, it's all creation, right? We're the ones who destroy a lot of it, but overall, if you really stop and look, and you realize, oh my gosh, God did this, right? It's a masterpiece. We're the ones that tend to ruin it a little bit.
But you know what, an entrepreneur like yourself, can have a really positive effect on the world. So thank you. And then I know that you're probably looking for investors in, I want to call it now Pilot AGI, and also,
if it wasn't as difficult to change a name, I would be like, let me do it. But just getting the domain for pilotai.com. That was a lot of money just to get the domain. So I don't know if there's a Pilot AGI.
Yeah, you can have multiple doors to the same company. So you could have pilotagi.com.
Yeah, exactly. I love it.
And when,
I love the idea.
and when they logged in, they could still see Pilot AI as the name. So, but I know you're looking for investors in Pilot AGI and also investors just as people to put their own money into the investment, to get returns, just like you would with you went to Schwab or to, Ameritrade or one of these other companies. And so, I would love to invest in both sides and also, encourage others that I know to invest in both sides.
Well, that's great. Yeah. So the beauty right now is that I'm going to close this round soon, and I'm going to do it strategically. I want to shut the round down, and then I want to launch Pilot AI.
You're in beta for Pilot AI right now, right?
We're in beta, and we did it on purpose. We ramped up very quickly on the beta version with a free subscription. We got this first quarter, we got 4,912 users, and last quarter 3,404 users. So very quickly we ramped up. And again, Pilot AI, I want to use it more of an institutional tool. So we're going to pause the funding here probably toward the end of this month, and then we're going to launch Pilot AI. And months after, I'm going to, of course, reopen the fundraising. We'll get a new valuation to be able to do that. And we'll get an increase in the valuation. I'm thinking it's going to be between $1 to $1.7 billion now with Pilot AI generating revenue. And in the meantime, of course, the name of the game is to build that B2B business model, a team, and start getting in front of some of these hedge funds and RIAs and pension funds.
When AI first started drifting out there, I thought, I don't really want to be involved in this. It's maybe fake.
As a Christian, you feel kind of weird, right? Because you're like, is this the way that the world is going to end, right?
Well, that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is, right?
I've been. Go ahead.
I just wanted to use it to help the retail side. I've liked to trade I'm a fan of trading. It's been something that the mathematics of it all and options is a very complex asset class and whatnot. And that was my main focus. What if people can get an edge in a market that's so tilted against the retail investor? But of course, now that